and we're going to be talking about risk. NFTs, what are the legal risks involved? And our panel includes Nicholas Lauw, Manuel Pesendorfer, Francesco Piccoli, and Dave Rodman. Panelists?
Hey everyone, yeah, last day here. There have been a lot of events, so thanks everyone for showing up and hanging in here. We have a very exciting panel here today. We're talking about legal risks surrounding NFTs. There's a lot of ground to cover, obviously, and we're trying to focus on the most important and pivotal points that are recurring topic within the space. So yeah, I guess we just kick it off with a quick introduction and then dive into the nitty-gritty stuff. So my name is Manuel Pesendorfer. I'm a corporate and securities attorney. I work for a firm, a boutique firm, Sauce & Associates. We're based in the city and we have an office in LA, and we're hyper-focused on startups and represent them with respect to their corporate and security law needs. We help them with capital raising, formation, up to exit events, and everything in between. And yeah, since 4 or 5 years, we have been hyper-focused on companies utilizing blockchain technology in one form or the other, representing many Web3 companies, including NFT creators, NFT platforms, gaming companies, which is a very, very interesting vertical, and yeah, travel agencies that venture into Web3, real estate. So it has been a very interesting ride so far. There's a lot going on in the space, obviously, specifically from a legal perspective and from a regulatory perspective. So very pumped to be here and talk about legal risk in the NFT space. Maybe you guys, yeah, Dave.
Hey, I'm Dave Rodman. I'm not on the background. I'm the founder and managing partner of the Rodman Law Group. We're based in Denver. We have been in Web3 since 2016, and it is our biggest practice area. We do a lot of what you do as well, structuring transactions, raising money, but we also litigate, and we're bringing some litigation on a very, very important topic in NFTs, which is IP. And so represent projects at every vertical of the space, from an L1 all the way up through different protocols and NFT drops. So pleasure to be here.
And good to meet you, Dave. You're the
Likewise.
only one who ever met yet.
You just got added to the panel.
Yeah,
Great to have you
Manuel
on.
and Nick and I met in the past few days to kind of like brainstorm a little bit what we were talking about, and today we learned that Dave was on our panel.
I crashed the
Great
panel.
addition. Francesco here. I'm the director of product at Unchained. I guess I'm the only non-legal expert here on the panel, so I guess I bring the technical perspective to the discussion. Unchained is a Web3 security and risk management startup based in San Jose, California. I run the product development there. We specialize in making sure there's no bad actors interacting with any application that touches blockchain. So that ranges from code security, smart contract security audits, to transaction security. So we do a lot of like on-chain analytics, trying to understand where some of the bad actors are trying to launder money, and trying to tell some of the applications running on blockchain that these bad actors are trying to interact with their application. So that blends down to wallet screening, transaction monitoring, and if anything happens, we help with investigations. We help, we give the tools for their compliance teams and investigators to trying to catch these bad guys, right? So this is in a nutshell, we serve crypto businesses, financial institutions, law enforcement, and regulators. We announced the SEC as one of our partners last year. So it's been, we've been working since 2018 in the space and been growing quite a bit in the past few years.
Hey, so I'm Nick. I'm from Singapore. So, you know, I'm from a law firm that is the biggest in Singapore and has offices all over Southeast Asia. NFTs are blowing up massively in Southeast Asia. I don't know if any of you are aware, and like quite a lot of people from Southeast Asia have actually made the long flight over here to attend this lovely conference. I personally do intellectual property, so my interest obviously is in the interplay between IP and NFTs, and I've seen quite a lot of different areas where problematic situations have arisen. So, you know, hopefully we'll be able to talk about some of that today.
Yeah, thanks so much, guys. I mean, Nick, I wanna, you know, first question for you. Obviously, for me as a securities attorney, the securities laws and the analysis as to how it ties into NFTs is always like fascinating, but equally fascinating are IP rights, right? Like intersection NFT and intellectual property. And I remember when I bought my first NFT, it was this like little Ethereum, and it's sort of like this alien. And obviously, as a nerdy lawyer, I looked into the terms of what do I actually buy, right? I buy the token, like, do I own the JPEG? Is the JPEG stored on-chain, or if not on-chain, where is it stored? So the question for you, if I buy an NFT, what do I actually buy? And I know there are like, you know, tons of projects out there, and they have different IP arrangements. So if you can tell us a little bit about that and, you know, what the legal pitfalls and implications are.
Man, you know, this is only a 20-minute panel, right? So, but you know, I guess a lot of people find this question interesting because everyone just goes on OpenSea and just buys NFTs, and they don't actually have a concept sometimes of what exactly they're buying. They know they own the NFT, but the reality is, you know, an NFT usually is tied to a picture or music, and these things basically have copyright that vests in them, which is separate from the NFT itself. And a lot of people don't separate these two things, but from the legal perspective, you know, I see it as two separate things, even though they're intrinsically linked. So obviously, when you buy an NFT, you have to know what rights you're getting. You need to know whether you own the image, whether you have license rights in the image, what kind of license rights those are, you know, what can you do with it, what can't you do with it. And these things are important to know. And you may not necessarily get that out of OpenSea itself. You may have to go on the Discord channel, or you may have to go on to the website to find out these details. And so with my own experience, I've had a lot of clients who they kind of know what they want to do when they release NFTs, but they don't really know how to structure it. And so we've had to have quite a lot of talks with them in terms of making sure they have the right information on their websites to get out there to the people who mint their NFTs. And I'll give you an example, like, you know, I mean, what's so important about knowing whether or not you're passing ownership in something? And I guess if you're an artist, you know, and you don't own the NFT, you know, would you be able to stop someone who is infringing the NFT, who's creating, you know, copies of the NFT? Technically speaking, the answer is no. You know, could you infringe your own NFT by creating a derivative piece of art? Potentially, yes, because I don't own the piece of art that I've previously created. And so these considerations are important, and you know, I think it's you know, artists need to get a better idea of these from their legal, you know, get some legal advice on this.
So, but in that case, you're speaking about the artist is assigning or transferring ownership to the NFT holder, and then NFT holder is licensing it back to the artist, right? In order to create derivative work.
So there are a few ways to do it. I guess one way is for, as you say, the ownership to pass and there be a license back to the artist so that the artist can do things, you know, can continue to create derivative works, can continue to exploit some of those rights. If, you know, a big company comes and wants to exploit, wants to make T-shirts of your NFT, you know, the artist has to be able to do that. So one way to do that is, as you say, to have the ownership pass and the license back. But another way to do that is just to grant a license to whoever it is that's purchasing the NFT. So the person that purchases the NFT might not actually own the image.
Right. And speaking about that latter scenario, Dave, I want to, you know, bring you on. So there is this like Seth Green case, and I'm pretty sure you're aware of it, which is a very interesting case. And to provide you guys a little more context, so Seth Green owned a Bored Ape, and he's the co-star and founder of Family Guy, and he had this new TV show, and on this new TV show he wanted to feature his Bored Ape. But prior to that, his Bored Ape got stolen, and the thief sold the Bored Ape later on OpenSea to a third party, which presumably acquired the Bored Ape in good faith. So interesting nuance here is that New York law applies, and there are tons of contract law questions of whether the third party was even able to obtain good title. But then a more important question here, Dave. So what if someone steals your Bored Ape, and on-chain, the thief essentially has possession? Do you still have ownership? Do you still have your IP rights? The Seth Green case is a super illustrative case of all of those issues surrounding IP laws. And
Yeah, so I think classic lawyer answer, it depends. But the important thing we'll go with Bored Apes. Supposedly gives you this royalty, all commercial rights. But in order for you to actually protect your Bored Ape, you need to go and register with the Copyright Office. So I don't know if he had done that or not. We just did all of our clients. He has like 89. And we did that proactively, one, because that's just smart. And if you're going to dump money into a development project, you should take those steps. But two, I'm sure everybody, show of hands, writer rips, the whole nonsense going on. So yeah, that's why you need to register your copyright. But back to your question, if you're just a regular holder and you haven't done that and you do lose access to it, you definitely don't have any real right to it anymore. But if you get the copyright, you could at least say, you can't force an anon to sell it back to him. He'd get it back though. But you could stop its image from being shown in other places with DMCA takedowns.
Okay, that's interesting. But so you're essentially making the argument, if on-chain now the thief has possession, the thief also has ownership of the underlying IP rights that were initially assigned to the purchaser. Is that what you're saying?
That's a good question.
Because there is this huge debate in the industry about whether code is law.
Yeah, well, code is definitely not law.
Yeah, right? And that for me ties into that topic, because on-chain, the thief has now possession, but off-chain, there hasn't been a transfer of title. So how can now the thief own the underlying IP rights that the initial purchaser acquired by buying that Bored Ape, right?
Yeah, it sets up for a huge dichotomy in what's actually happening and what is intended to happen. So in that example, the thief still has it. He has the copyright. Yuga gave him the license through the purchase. We are talking about the bleeding edge of case law. It doesn't exist yet.
Right.
And it's going to be very interesting trying to explain this to a 60-year-old judge.
Yeah, so yeah. I don't know. I think it's kind of interesting because a lot of it turns on how the theft occurred in the first place. Because you have some situations where someone has actually purchased the NFT from you, but you've kind of been scammed into selling it to him for a cheaper price. So in that situation, is there really a theft? So if there's actually been a legitimate sale, arguably then the title does pass. Obviously, if he's hacked into your wallet and taken it, then then I don't think
it was a phishing attack in the Seth Green case, I think.
But he did pay for it, right? I think because he didn't bought it back for like 300 grand.
It was sold back to him by the third party.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, but actually this is an interesting case for another reason that I was thinking of, which is that IP rights are generally very hard to steal because they don't exist in material form. So the fact that you now have an NFT that can be stolen, I was just wondering if that's a step back in terms of IP rights.
Right.
Just an interesting thought.
That's an interesting point.
Yeah, I guess if anything, we're leaving you guys with a lot of questions today because we also have a lot of questions, right? And I'm gonna be asking you guys a lot of questions now because talking about these. Sorry.
I want to bring you in, Francesco, because we're speaking about the transaction where the thief sold actually that Bored Ape to the, third party, it happened on OpenSea. So, and those platforms, those NFT platforms, even in a blockchain-based ecosystem, those are very important intermediaries, and they add credibility to the market and make the market more reliable. So, from your perspective, are you guys working with NFT platforms? Are you helping them on, from a technological point of view to make it more secure? What trends do you see in the NFT space, and what services do you guys provide, and how can you mitigate risk or help enforcement actions? Because you just said you guys work with the SEC, so if you want to shed a little more light on that.
Yeah, so we work with several NFT platforms, right? And eventually what we look at is on-chain transactions, right? So it's all public data. There's this Bored Ape that has been stolen, and we're able to trace it, see who buys it, with what money, where that money comes from. And the old question there is, okay, we have these tools that allows you to actually see what's happening on chain, to trace it, even if it goes through smart contracts, even if it goes through complicated routes to obfuscate some of that money. But eventually, with the technical tool, right? What do you do with that information, right? And that is the big question these days, right? Is the person who bought that Seth Green stolen ape liable for buying a stolen asset? Is the person who buys it after liable? Is the marketplace liable? Those are some of the questions I have, right? We're able to trace it, to find it, to get that information, but then what, right? And that really tells you how early this still is, right? We're all still trying to figure this thing out. And this is just one example, right? If you can reverse the picture, now the hacker, right? They have $500,000 in their wallet, and they go on OpenSea and they buy a CryptoPunk now. Is OpenSea liable? Is the guy who sold that CryptoPunk to this hacker liable? We don't know, right? I don't know yet. And you guys might have a better perspective here. What we are able to do is trace it, right? And find this information and provide it. Then compliance teams, law enforcement can use this information and do what they think it's best, right?
Yeah, I think that most of the platforms are doing a decent job at shifting the liability out onto the other parties, and that they're not responsible. But they do need to make sure they comply with law enforcement and DMCA takedowns. But we actually drafted the terms of service for a very small marketplace, and it was all about just pushing the responsibility onto the users and having some things in place for them to be able to respond to the real world. But yeah, some of the stuff is definitely bleeding edge. Yeah.
And Manuel might have a better perspective here, right? But if I go, if this hacker then goes to Uniswap and launders money through Uniswap, which is a decentralized platform, right? Who's liable then, right? There's a DAO there. Manuel, you have a better perspective probably there on how to best manage this risk, right? And how DAOs, do this these days.
Right. I mean, that's a really a tricky legal question. As you said, it's if you all of a sudden swap your token on Uniswap, which is essentially decentralized, and there is no one in charge and in control, do they have any AML KYC compliance in place? And the answer is no as of now. I mean, there are some other protocols, and they use obviously blockchain intelligence services like you guys or TRM or all those other service providers out there. But it's actually a very interesting legal question, and yeah, I don't think the 5 minutes will suffice to answer that sufficiently. But
well, everyone knows about the SEC investigation in Uniswap. I think that there is also probably a much more low-key FinCEN BSA type analysis that is being done, and that's the scary one. That's the one that'll land you in jail.
Yeah.
I always joke that Hayden should have his passport on him at all times because he might have to flee the country, and it's not even really a joke.
Yeah, I mean, what Dave is speaking about, the BSA, the Bank Secrecy Act, that's definitely a very important piece of regulation that ties into all of this. And we have the CVC, the convertible virtual currencies, and if you exchange values and if you facilitate that, you're essentially subject to the Bank Secrecy Act. So, but the space is so novel, obviously, so all that regulation, we're all trying to figure it out, and the SEC obviously comes out with a lot of guidance all the time, but there is no real regulation. And then we recently saw there was a new piece of regulation where they introduced, where they basically want to capture automated market makers, right? As essentially they have to register as broker dealers, which kind of like, you know, they want to capture protocols like Uniswap or Aave or those things.
This is why we put all of our clients offshore.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, yeah. So do you want to tell us a little about offshore structures, like DAO structures?
Yeah, I mean,
what is currently best practice?
I think the best practice for a DAO is to use what's called a foundation company in the Caymans. Has no owners. It's an orphaned entity, and we've done this for several projects. But basically, it then owns a subsidiary. And that's like your DAO treasury, and it sits in the Caymans, tax advantage jurisdiction, and then you can actually make the foundation exist for the benefit of the token holders. You can designate them beneficiaries, and in doing this, you can then govern the topco, the foundation company, through a smart contract, totally above board, totally legal. You insulate your holders from the general partnership risk that you would have without a DAO structure, and you deal with taxes in a much better way. It is absolutely the only real way to do it, because like the Wyoming DAO law was stillborn. It makes no sense. The Secretary of State can just remove the liability protections, and then you have these other caps on how many people can be in a DAO based on what the DAO is doing. And if it's a venture DAO, which like most DAOs are, you can only have 99 people in it, otherwise you're a mutual fund. If it's like a marketing DAO, if you have one non-accredited investor who's a participant, then you can only have 499 participants, otherwise you have to report like a publicly traded company. If they're all accredited investors, you could have 1,999, but then again, same reporting requirements as Facebook. So you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't, if you try to create a DAO in the US. So we just say, you know, we're not going to wait around for our clients to be the test case and, you know, either a partnership suit or an SEC enforcement. We're going to corporatize them in the Caymans in this perfect entity, and it works really well.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that is really interesting, and, you know, the entire, like, DAO topic, in my opinion. I mean, the personal liability you touched upon, that's for an NFT holder a really important factor. Like, let's say you buy like a monkey, right? And as a monkey, you have access to a gated like Discord community, and now you start chatting with all those people, and the scope of activity broadens at some point, and you do much more. So you could be deemed a general partnership. But the downsides of general partnerships are that you are personally liable for your acts, your partner's acts, and the acts on behalf of the partnership. So all of a sudden you own a monkey and there are 4,999 other monkey holders, and you could be liable because Dave did something, and then, you know, and
then you lose your house.
Yeah, and then you lose your house. So that's why you want to, what Dave just explained, you want to use a legal wrapper, such as a Cayman Foundation or a BVI entity for purposes of token issuances. So nothing yet stood the test of time, in my opinion. We're just like doing it on the fly, and we're trying to figure things out. And obviously those structures are not perfect, because there are all those cross-border elements that you have to figure out, specifically if your core founder team is based in the US. But yeah, it's been very interesting.
It's just scary, right? No one buys a monkey and thinks they're going to lose their house, right?
Right? Yeah. No.
No, but super, and then we're probably out of time here. But super interesting. Say that like government-sanctioned wallet, right? A terrorist launders money through a series of hops and then comes in and buy one of those monkey DAOs, right? One of those monkeys. are the person in the monkey DAOs anyhow liable for any of these things? I don't know. Or is the marketplace liable? These are questions that we'll still all try to figure it out. But I guess 25 minutes are not enough.
Yeah, I think we're out of time. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.